I love heart in movies.
I just know that every man I kill, the farther away from home I feel.
A movie has heart when it earns our empathy. It has characters that have needs and wants. They go through adversity and conflict, and emerge changed or victorious. Often, one of the key elements to creating empathy with a character is for them to reveal something deeply personal about themselves that gives the viewer something to relate to. In the Disney documentary Waking Sleeping Beauty, lyricist Howard Ashman describes characterization like this. That's not to say every character has to be defined this way, but I've seen a lot of movies that simply rely on relationship titles like mother, father, husband, or wife to assume our empathy rather than giving us something tangible to work with.
Hold on, son. Dad!
Obviously, everyone is going to empathize with movies and its characters differently, but it's easy to spot when a movie takes its time and puts a focus on characterization. And I think Steven Spielberg's films use a lot of similarly constructed scenes to create great examples of characterization. In several of his films, we get scenes where a character shares a personal story that reveals their goals or a point of view, and in each of these sequences we get a slow push-in with the camera to create more intimacy with the character. Take, for example, the scene from Jurassic Park. It takes place right after the park starts to break down. John Hammond, who created the park, talks about the first attraction he made, a flea circus. As soon as he begins to speak, the camera starts to slowly push in. As he begins to describe the flea circus, a light melody begins. He is fondly reminiscing about his past. He describes all the motorized attractions the circus had for its invisible fleas. As it goes on, we realize John is talking about his dreams.
But with this place, I wanted to show them something that wasn't an illusion. Something that was real. Something that they could see and touch.
John wants to make spectacular attractions. This moment shows the internal struggle inside John. Yes, his dinosaur park has broken down and killed some people, but it started off as such a beautiful, pure dream.
I own an island off the coast of Costa Rica.
And John discusses his dream from a more relatable standpoint. In his story, he's not the billionaire CEO of a company that can have anything he wants. His story frames him as a modest entertainer, with invisible performers, on an imaginary stage. A guy who, like many of us, dared to dream. Maybe not everyone in the audience will relate to John's dreams, but a lot of people can relate to something they believed in not working out. A career, a relationship, or an idea.
Clever girl.
Now, people won't necessarily consider all these personal connections while they're watching a movie, but the way the scene is designed and framed, it creates a space for more intimacy with the character. This way we can follow characters like John Hammond from his deepest desires and see what he ultimately decides for the park.
I don't believe it. You're meant to come down here and defend me against these characters, and the only one I've got on my side is the blood-sucking lawyer.
This is the pattern you see all over Spielberg's work. The slow push-in that occurs during the scene to increase the intimacy of the moment. The long personal story, the music designed to evoke even more empathy from us. Like in Spielberg's Cold War film, Bridge of Spies. Here, a captured Russian spy, Rudolph Abel, is using a story from his past to describe his lawyer, James Donovan, played by Tom Hanks. He essentially says Donovan reminds him of a man from his childhood who he saw beaten by border guards.
Every time they hit him, he stood back up again. So they hit him harder. Still, he got back to his feet.
Abel explains that as far as he could tell, there was nothing remarkable about this man until this event. But there is something to admire in getting up after you've been knocked down. It's something the audience can appreciate, because while they may not have ever been beaten down, they will likely have been set back by something in their lives and given up on it for a time, or forever. and hearing about someone who refuses to quit is inspiring. Abel's speech acts as the emotional bond that will support him and Donovan throughout the film, and also acts as the focal point for the audience to identify with both characters as well. Again, slow push in from the camera, deeply personal story, emotional music. Each Spielberg characterization scene doesn't have the exact same setup. In The Terminal, Tom Hanks plays Victor Navorsky, a man trapped inside an airport due to a passport issue. He is given an opportunity to leave, but he refuses to leave illegally because he has something important to do in New York. Late in the film, we learn why Victor came to New York and why he's sacrificing some of his life by living indefinitely in an airport.
They all write their name and send it to my father.
My father died before Benny Golson read his name.
In this scene, the push-in starts on the person hearing the story, and the push-in starts on Amelia because she's just realizing how remarkable Victor is.
I promise I will go to New York, find Benny Golson, give him right name to put in camp.
By giving Victor a story behind his motivation and an emotional reason, it turns this life-altering sacrifice into a more relatable narrative than Victor just saying, "I am doing this for my father." Or these small examples from Saving Private Ryan, which could be ordinary push-ins, but they also mark overall themes for the film, like when this general is reading the letter by Abraham Lincoln, which the general uses as the reasoning for sending 8 men into war to save 1 man.
I pray that our Heavenly Father may assuage the anguish of your bereavement and leave you only the cherished memory of the loved and lost. The solemn pride that must be yours to have laid so costly a sacrifice upon the altar of freedom.
You can even see small elements of Spielberg's characterization technique in the scene where Tom Hanks' character reveals his long-kept secret of what his job was back home. There's a brief push-in on Hanks as he starts to speak. Then there's a pause on each character's face to see how they react to the story. Then Tom Hanks' character walks closer into the frame. Still, all the elements are there: the slow push-in, the personal history, the yearning string music.
You know, if going to Ramel and finding him so he can go home, if that earns me the right to get back to my wife, well then that's my mission.
On Inside the Actor's Studio, Tom Hanks said an actor's job was,
Because our job is to hold the mirror up to nature. If it's funny, that's fine. If it entertains you, that's fine. But it must, under all circumstances, hold the mirror up to nature. We must be constantly examining who we are, how we got here, and how we're getting through all of this.
I'd extend this to characters and films. The billionaire CEO who started with an invisible troop of fleas, but dreamt of a spectacle for the entire world. An ordinary family man with an extraordinary devotion to justice. And a man who would do anything for his father, because his father would do anything for him. And in many of Steven Spielberg's films, it is the depth of these characters' motivations and the push-ins and music he uses that help create that moment of intimacy with the audience. It's an invitation to see yourself as you are, then see what you can be. To hopefully create a love inside your heart for these characters and their stories that will glow and burn and keep you warm for the rest of your life.